And because it has so much power and so much torque, you don't even have to use all 6 gears. Very frequently, I just did now. I just went from 2nd to 4th. Actually, the car has a built-in feature. I have disabled it, but it had a built-in feature for what GM considers fuel economy. You start in first, and once you hit a certain rev range at a certain accelerator percentage, it will make you shift from 1st to 4th. And that sounds ridiculous, but this car has so much torque, you literally couldn't do it. The engine would drop down from 2,000 to about 700-800 RPMs, and it would just keep going along. I just hated that control thing, and it didn't occur all the time, but for the little bit that it did occur, it drove me kind of nuts, so I turned it off. You can snip the green wire, or if you have tuning software these days, you can just go into the computer and just turn it off. Much easier, I think. I don't like snipping wires. I am grateful to Bob Lutz for bringing this car over. I'm grateful to the owners and the GTO communities that have helped me with questions I've had. There's a lot of great people out there. If you have any questions or any issues with your car, you can look them up and just ask some questions. And just about any problem you could have ever had with the car has been had by somebody else, and a solution's been come up with, a new part's been engineered. The one good thing about this that the G8 owners are kind of struggling with right now is because all the Pontiac dealers have closed. The parts are kind of hard to come by for these things, for their cars when things go wrong. For this, there's such a huge aftermarket, despite the fact there's only about 40,000 cars in the country. Just about anything that can go wrong with your car can be replaced aftermarket. You don't have to go to the manufacturers. You can go on the forums. LS1 GTO is a great one. A lot of the vendors who sign up there, and if you have any problems or anything you want to change with the car, you can go there and find it, usually for some pretty reasonable prices, and you can do whatever you want with your car. You can make it a straight-up drag car. You can just make it a more compliant cruiser. You can make it a road course car. Whatever you want to do. It's hard to be angry in a car like this, because even if traffic is slowing you down or whatever have you, you can get around it pretty quickly. You only need a gap of about 300-400 feet to pass any car just like that. It is so fast, and it accelerates so nice. And there's nothing better than the sound when you get this thing wound up to 5,000, 6,000, 6.5, right up to the red line. It is a fantastic noise. It's just fantastic. We're cruising now at 60 miles an hour, and I'm getting 27, 28 miles to the gallon. I mean, that's not bad. I can tell you straightforward that my Grand Prix, when it was all souped up, it couldn't get anywhere near that, even on the cruise. And I tuned that thing 6 ways from Sunday trying to get some fuel economy out of it. It just wouldn't do it. These LS engines are so efficient, and they burn so well, despite the fact that they're 2 valves. They're just great engines, and I think they're probably going to be the best V8 engine America will ever make. I know the new Mustang engine with its 4 valves is a pretty impressive engine. The problem with that engine is what you get from the factory is just about all you're going to get. They don't have a lot in the room of upgradability. The heads flow so fantastically well from the factory. There's not going to be a lot of room there for porting and opening them up. The engines are very highly strung. They're very high compression. You already need 93 octane fuel to run it. It's not going to be a thing where you can just throw a couple of bolt-ons on it and get more power out of it. It's got factory headers. You're going to maybe be able to throw a blower on it and get more power out of it, or some nitrous, but that's really about it. Whereas these, they have got a lot of room to expand. The idea of getting 500, 550 horsepower out of one of these in the crank is a very realistic goal. And I will build this engine to get 500 out of the crank, and it won't take much. It'll take some new heads and a little bit more compression and a better intake, and that's about it. I've already got the headers, and it's already probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 440 horsepower right now, just with headers and exhaust and a tune. I mean, that's pretty good, especially when you consider that I probably put, I couldn't even tell you how much I spent on my Grand Prix back in the day just to get the power from 200 to maybe 275. It was a ridiculous amount of money. I could spend that same money on this engine and get it up almost to 600 horsepower. It is really a fantastic engine. Car guys love this car. Maybe not the diehards, maybe not the old school guys from the GTOs from the 60s. Maybe the GTO wasn't the greatest name for this car, but you know what? I don't mind it at all. But maybe that's because I didn't grow up in the 60s. Maybe I didn't grow up in that era of the Chevelle and the Regal GS Stage 1 and 2 and the Impala Super Sport. I didn't grow up with those cars, so when GM comes along in 2004 and says, here's a new GTO, I'm like, sweet. I know some of the old guys did and don't like it, and I know they don't really appreciate it, especially because it's not built in America. But you know what? I don't mind that at all. I mean, in the 60s, I will admit, we made great cars, but some of those cars that GM came up with in the 80s and the 90s, I don't know. I owned many of them. I enjoyed them, but there were lots of parts of them that were not very well built. I hate to say that because I'm one of the world's biggest GM fans, but they were making some shoddy cars back in the 90s. It was all plastic and just built to a price, and they didn't hold up very long. The drivetrains were very reliable, but the rest of the cars just fell apart. Kind of like Ford was doing the same thing in the 80s. You bought a Crown Victoria or a Country Esquire or an F-150 pickup, and it had a 6-cylinder or an 8-cylinder engine, and that thing would run until the tires literally fell off, apart, along with the doors and the fenders and the box, and it would all just rust away. But the engines lasted forever, and Americans have always been good at powertrain reliability, and that's one of the other reasons I wanted this car. I know it's Australian, I know it was built in Australia, but it was built well, and it's got a dead nuts reliable engine. And quite honestly, you just cannot beat that combination. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like it, we'll do another one sometime. Oh, and in case you're wondering if it can do a burnout, yes it can.